going to be working on installing a new controller on an old applicator. First thing we're going to do is take the chain guard off. And set that off to the side. You're going to want to remove the chain, so you find the keeper link that holds the chain together. Remove the chain. Use a 1/8 Allen wrench to remove your sprocket on the auger. Install your magnetic wheel and push it up as close to the applicator as you can get it. Reinstall your sprocket. Now there are 2 set screws to loosen and tighten the sprocket, one here and then 1 1/4 turn. Now you'll get your, I've already installed my cherry sensor to the sensor mount. On this side of the applicator there's 2 bolts. Remove the nuts. There's 2 slotted openings. Slide those over the bolts. Now there will be some adjustment. So what you want to do is make sure your sensor is close to the magnetic wheel without touching it. The rule of thumb is that you should be able to slide a dime in between the sensor and the magnetic wheel. Tighten your bolts down. Okay, we're going to reinstall the chain. Before you reinstall the chain, there's a grease cert located right here on the auger. Make sure that that is taking grease, and that you can take a screwdriver and stick it in the hole in the end of the auger, and everything spins freely. Now we need to reinstall our chain. And tighten our chain. There's 4 bolts on the motor mount. Now is a good time to make sure that that chain is tight. You don't want it as tight as you can get it. You want a little bit of give in the chain, but not much. Make sure you can move the top of the chain about that much. Tighten your screws on the motor mount. Make sure the chain is in line with the 2 sprockets That way the chain will run smooth. You've serviced the auger, that will run smooth, and that will allow for a good application. Make sure that the chain is not rusty and all the links are free. You can go to the auto parts store and get specific chain lube for that, or WD-40, penetrating oil, anything like that. But you don't want that chain super tight, but you do want a little bit of give in it. The next thing we're going to work on is removing the old plugs and replacing them with weather pack plugs. In your kit you should receive a 2-prong weather pack connector in a plastic bag. We're going to go ahead and cut the end off our blower motor. Strip the wires back about a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch. And I'm just using a pair of strippers you can buy at any auto parts or hardware store. The next thing you want to do is you'll receive 2 seals. Slide those over top of the wires till they go over the sheeting. You'll have 2 weather pack metal plugs you'll remove from the, and we're going to crimp those on the end of the wire. As you can see, there's a larger crimp and a smaller crimp. You want the wire, the copper part of the wire, to sit into the smaller crimp. They do make a special crimping tool for this, but you can use just, like I said, a regular pair of wire pliers. Crimp your smaller one on. Make sure it's good and tight and wrapped in the copper. Next thing, the weatherproof plug needs to slide into the larger crimp. And you don't want to crimp this down all the way, you just want it to be tightened around that weatherproof plug. Okay, on the weather pack plug housing, there's a small A and a B. The rule of thumb is black always goes into B and red goes to A. And then all you do is clip that back over and the plug is complete. This will be the same on the drive motor as it is on the blower motor. Okay, now we're going to install our electric motor drive. This would be the black box with the plugs epoxied into it. In your controller kit, in the hardware kit, you'll receive these self-tapping screws. That's generally what I use to install this, and then I drill those right into the plastic and they hold very well. So as you can see, we've installed our electric motor drive and we've replaced our old plug with the weather pack plug. There's only one place that this can plug into on the electric motor drive. The next plug, you'll receive a cable power for the electric motor drive and the relay for the blower. The green plug will be installed in the electric motor drive. The red plug will be used for the relay for the blower. If you are not using a blower, you do not need to plug this in. It can be zip tied up. It's a weatherproof plug, it won't hurt anything. The other end of this plug, you'll receive 30 foot of extension that will plug into here. And if you need to have this at the hitch of a tractor on a baler, you can cut this to length and cut this to length. What I generally do is cut this plug here and cut this plug here, and I splice it in with butt splices wherever the hitch is. The other thing you'll receive is a 30 amp fuse and fuse holder with weatherproof butt splices. This connection needs to go direct to battery. If this cable is all the wire length you need to get to battery or a 30 amp power source, you can cut this plug off and install your 30 amp fuse. You'll go to your wiring box and you'll receive a branch harness that looks like this. Find the two plugs labeled control and auger rate sensor. The control plug be the last open plug on the electric motor drive, and the auger rate sensor will plug into the cherry sensor we installed on the auger. Okay, now we're going to install our hanging bracket for a blower and install our relay for the blower. What this does is it sends a signal back and forth from the controller to turn the blower on and off. There's 3 plugs on that, like we talked about earlier. The red plug from our power cord will get plugged in there, and from our branch harness, the plug labeled enable blower, and the last one will be reserved for the blower motor. So now we're going to install this on the underneath side of our applicator. The last plug on the blower relay will come from the blower motor. You remember we placed the old plug with the weather pack plug. Plug right in. The rest of the branch harness, there's 4 extra plugs. One's labeled moisture. I don't want to get you guys excited, but we are working on moisture technology, and that's going to be for future use. So as we develop that technology, you'll be able to download a new program to your controller, and hopefully we'll be able to have moisture technology. Bin level sensor. We do offer an optional bin level sensor that will be mounted into the bottom of the hopper, and as the Agri-King drops below the bin level sensor, it will send a signal to the controller to let the operator know that the bin is getting low. Blower RPM sensor. If you receive a newer blower, there will be an RPM sensor attached to the bottom of it, and we're using that to stop the auger from running if something happens to the blower, so we don't cause further damage. Your bale crop sensor. This plug is used for a lot of different things. First one, if you have a chopper, you'll receive a relay that plugs in to the bale crop sensor, and the red wire gets put on the positive side of the header control plug, no matter what brand of chopper it is. The other thing it's used for, we have an optional photo eye kit now that can be installed on balers at the pickups, and when hay is not coming through the pickups of the baler, it will pause the applicator. The other thing it's used for is a bale speed sensor that can be mounted on the back of any square baler, small or large, and we can apply Agri-King by pounds of Agri-King per ton of bale going through the baler at an automatic rate. As the bales speed up coming out of the bale chamber, the application rate will speed up, and as the bales slow down, the application rate will slow down, and if the bales stop, it will pause the applicator. Next, we're going to go to our controller box where the controller came in. In there, you'll receive a hardware package that has the self-tapping screws that I talked about for installing the electric motor drive. And you'll receive 2 wing nuts, 2 rubber washers, and 2 carriage bolts. We're going to use these to mount our mounting plate for the controller. You can find a place to mount this in the cab, mount it securely, and then attach your controller. Take your rubber washer and your carriage bolt, slide that through the back side. You'll also receive 2 switches, an on-off switch and a run-hold switch. For the MC10, you'll only receive an on-off switch, and that is for the blower. Put your wing nut on loosely. Before that, install your switch. Same on the other side. Now everything's attached loosely. The controller will slide in to the carriage bolts. Like so. And tighten your wing nuts until your switches are tight against the bracket. The back side of the controller, you'll have 3 plug-ins. One labeled run hold, and one on the controller labeled run hold, color coded to match. Same with the power switch, color coded to match, and they can only plug in one way. Which leaves your 16-pin plug-in, which will go to your tractor harness. Coming off of the tractor harness, you'll have a gray wire with the red and the black and a fuse holder. Attach these to constant power inside the cab. If you have a plug-in of some sort inside the cab, you can use that. The other end will have a dust cap on it. That is for when you disconnect from the baler or the pull-type chopper. You put that dust cap back in there to protect the plug-in. And this last plug-in will go to the branch harness that we attached to the controller, or to the applicator. And this is from the controller. And that is it for the installation of the new controller to an old applicator.